This is the Retirement Solution Podcast with financial advisor John Hicks, founder of J. Hagan Capital.
There are so many things that we just have in our mind and we assume that they're correct because we've heard them 100,000 times. We got to get rid of all those myths. If you've done a great job saving, you'd be surprised what you can accomplish when you use the right strategies. Most people just aren't aware of them.
You've worked hard your whole life to earn and save. Now you need a plan to make that money work hard for you.
So people that have sacrificed opportunities to spend money, they sacrificed by putting the money in that 401k. They've sacrificed by putting that money in a 529 college plan for their grandkids. Those types of sacrifices should go rewarded in the long run.
John is here to help you find solutions for your retirement.
Ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country.
Big moments in U.S. history.
Have you been to Niagara Falls, John?
No, I have not.
You haven't?
I've been to New York. I've been to upstate New York several times. I have never been to Niagara Falls.
You and Tennille need to take the girls. It's actually very cool. The little ferry ride, they take you right into the horseshoe that's in the Canadian side. But it's awesome. You got to do it.
I totally intend on doing that one day.
I recommend.
I think from 2020 to now, it's kind of like, I could do without New York.
Right.
So I'm sure one day, pretty soon, then I'm going to want to get the kids out that way.
Plan a summer trip because it's cold when you're riding through that thing and it's spraying on you. And also, don't go over the falls. Take the ferry ride, not the over the falls ride, like how Annie Edson Taylor did.
Uh-huh.
And that's where I'm going with this.
Oh.
I don't know her. In 1901, Annie Edson Taylor was the first person to go over Niagara Falls in a barrel and survive. At the ripe age of 63 years old.
I love the fact that it says she was the first person to go over and survive.
Accurate.
Like many people had gone over there, but they didn't fare as well.
Accurate.
63.
63 years old. It was on her birthday. It was on her day of her 63rd birthday. Ask me why. Why? Because, of course, I'm like, why would you do this? Ask me why.
Why would you do that?
She was seeking financial help. This is where I'm bringing it full circle to what you do. There's got to be a better purpose. She was a teacher in Michigan. She was financially destitute, as were a couple of her friends. So she flung herself in a barrel over Niagara Falls, hoping to get some fame, and therefore the fortune would follow.
Oh, wow.
And it didn't pan out. It didn't work out.
I thought you were going to say that she only had a week left before her term life insurance policy was up. And she was going to go over assuming that at least her kids would be left something in the end.
Nope.
No, that's not a good story either, by the way. I just didn't know what you were going to go with that. Okay.
That would make sense.
There's better, by the way, guys, if you're out there are better ways.
Please?
There are better ways to plan for things. I assure you.
Please.
Nothing should involve barrels in New York.
Falling over any waterfall
Maybe
in
ever.
any fashion. Please spare yourself. Yeah, I was just...
That's impressive. Impressively bad.
The whole thing is a movie in the making waiting to be happen. In fact, I'm surprised it hasn't happened thus far. But again, pointing back to the seekingness of better opportunities is what you're here to help us discover, John. Even though this year it feels like there's just one dead end after the other. Walls we just keep hitting as investors. I mean, you've seen it day in and day out. People coming into your office, the amount of money lost in retirement plans is gut-wrenching.
Well, I mean, yeah, if you had too much risk, going into the situation, then things may be a little uncomfortable right now. And I see it all the time. And I think I've said it on the show for years. No one knows who's swimming naked until the tide goes out. But here we are. We're in a situation where the market's handed a pretty big beating, and people that are coming into me, hey, they were swimming out there. They were having some fun for a while.
Yeah.
But now that the tide's out, they feel very exposed. Now, guys, a lot of this can be fixed as long as you understand you could potentially wreck the entire recovery if you make wrong decisions after you've lost money.
Yeah.
So the biggest thing that I would say to anyone is, hey, get a fiduciary second opinion, whether it's mine or someone else's. The main thing is you want a fiduciary second opinion if you've lost money and now you're fearful if you can make your goals work. Because there are so many things that people can do to plug those holes, right? They could fix the issues with really not a lot of work. But sometimes what I see them do is they're like, oh my gosh, no, I can't handle this. We have to completely get off this merry-go-round completely.
Yeah.
And then they make decisions that they will absolutely suffer from for the rest of their lives. So guys, there are so many things that we can do, just like the chick that went over the falls in a barrel. There are better ways to solve those problems. But simply, it comes down to understanding where you are, how much risk you are comfortable taking regardless of the market situation, and understanding what you want to achieve and when it's time to do that, right?
Right.
So I just see people all the time, and they come in and they're worried and they're sweating almost. And I'm like, hey, no matter what we talk about today, all you're going to find out is where you are and what you can do to get yourself out of this, whether you use us or anyone else, right?
Right.
Or whether you just stay the course, like your guy's telling you, which is often, by the way, not the best answer.
Not much want to hear.
But I mean, it's so true. It's not the best answer for most people that are thinking about retirement or they're already retired. So when you think through that, though, it's very simple. You just want to know what your options are that don't hurt your future. That's the big thing.
Well, economists are saying that in this current climate, John, inflation, its impacts on the market have taken an average of 25% off American 401ks. That's an estimated total of $2.1 trillion, y'all. And as we sit here and watch the experts try to decide if the market has reached the bottom, some have been asking if this could actually also present opportunities. That's where you come in, John. Is there another bull market out there we can find? How do you help us figure this out? How do you help us avoid the barrel over the falls?
Yeah, I mean, if you think about it, if you're a student of history like I am, when you look at the ancient symbol for crisis, believe it or not, in a lot of ancient texts, the exact same symbol for crisis is the exact same symbol for opportunity.
That's interesting.
So I will guarantee you, when you look at some of the biggest robber barons of history, from Rothschild or the Vanderbilts, or frankly, even the Kennedys, Joe Kennedy built his empire during Prohibition. Doing what? Selling booze. Right? So there are always going to be opportunities when other people, unfortunately, are experiencing crisis. We just have to be able to play the game long enough and be able to stay in long enough to find those opportunities, right?
Yeah.
But unfortunately, what I've seen, because you were just talking about this article, by the way, I read this article.
Yeah.
I feel like it's important, Heather, to say what the title of this article is.
Okay.
The title of this article is How Biden is Hammering Your 401k.
Yep.
Soaring inflation has wiped out $2.1 trillion off American workers' retirement savings. Guys. That, I don't know, I'm going to go ahead and go out on a limb here and say it is not 100% the administration's fault.
Right.
But it is the fault of American politicians and the Fed and how they've allowed this to unravel and come out so far. Because the one piece of this article that just absolutely stuck out to me, this article, by the way, was done by two economists. One of the things they said was there's one thing for the market to be down 15, 20, 25%, whatever it is. There's another thing when you put the inflation cost on there, Heather. They actually estimated that since everything has started going down, another 13% of downturn is because the money that you had last year doesn't spend the same as this year. Because eggs are more expensive, milk is more expensive, maybe gasoline's come down a little bit, but it is still much more expensive. And here we go into the winter months when the Northeast and a lot of us in the northern part of Kentucky, we are going to be having heating bills that I've heard, and I'm very uncomfortable with, could be double or triple what we've seen in the most recent periods of time. Guys, this can be devastating because these are not short-term problems if they require long-term solutions, right? So when we're looking at this, what on earth can we do? Well, think about it. Can we afford to be down 20% and on top of that have our money spend 13% less? Because then we're down 33%. So now we understand why I say it's so important. Rule number one to investing, and by the way, there are only two. Rule number one, never lose money. And rule number two is never forget the first rule. That's it. That is it. This has actually been said by Warren Buffett. It's been said by dozens of people who understand that the richest of the rich people, they go to great lengths. They're almost crazy to try to avoid risk. They really are, because they realize the toughest part is growing the money, is to get it there in the first place. That's the hardest part, because you can't spend lost money. So their whole point was, I don't care if I get 20%. I just want to make sure I don't lose 20%.
Right.
And they have a very different mantra. So having said that, what can we do if inflation is absolutely another loss to our portfolio? Well, guy, I've been saying it for years. Get rid of your dead money in your portfolios. You know what I'm talking about. But one of the things that I have been, I don't know, I'm not going to say I've been reluctant to call dead money because it's worse, are the bonds in our portfolio. Now, I'm going to take a moment here to hammer on this.
Okay.
Biden did not hammer your 401k when it came down to bonds. The Fed did that. And the Fed has made one promise to us. They ain't quitting anytime soon.
Right.
And the one difference between stocks and bonds is that in order for stocks to go up, people have to want to buy those stocks, right?
Right.
They have to have more earnings. They have to have better results, and people want to buy those companies. On bonds, it's very different. If you have a 1% bond, and now someone can go out to the bank and get 4% from a bank, do they ever want your 1% bond? The answer is no.
Yeah.
So are those bonds ever going to come back in the long run? No, they're not. So if you own bonds in your portfolio, please get a second opinion from a fiduciary advisor. Please find out your other alternatives where you can have safer money than bonds, that you can potentially get out of this rut. Because the one thing that has been said over and over and over by the Fed is they're not stopping and they're not looking back. I would hate to see that the majority of people who don't hit their goals is because they were thinking they were being safe, or their advisor told them they were safe by being in bonds. And those become the albatross that stops you from retiring. We can do better than that. We cannot combat inflation. We don't have the power for that. We can't combat market downturns. We don't have power for that. But we do have the power to stop bond losses and at least get 4.5% to 6% rates of return with zero downside risk. If that seems to be a better fit than the continual losses in bonds, you need to seek out a second opinion.
Thanks for listening to the Retirement Solution Podcast with John Hicks. Begin the conversation about your savings plan with John and the team at J. Hagan Capital by visiting retirementsolutionradio.com. Be sure to listen to John's radio show, The Retirement Solution, Saturdays at 8 a.m. and Sundays at 9 a.m. on News Radio 840 WHAS.
J. Hagan Capital Inc. is not licensed in all 50 states. To find out if J. Hagan Capital Inc. is licensed in your state, please call 502-690-5635. J. Hagan Capital Inc. is not affiliated with nor endorsed by the Social Security Administration or any other government agency. It does not provide legal or tax advice. Annuity guarantees rely solely on the financial strength and claims paying ability of the issuing insurance company. By contacting us, you may be provided with information about insurance and annuity products offered through Jonathan Hicks, insurance license number 548962.